Today on NewsWatch, tensions in the Middle East are on the rise. We'll show you why the unrest could end up taking a toll on your finances. Plus,
know that they're going to come, we'll get an arrival notice. And that's when we're going to start hitting the ground running.
See how this church is showing the love of God to refugees. And the weekend is here, and we've got a review of some films hitting the box office. See which ones are safe for the entire family. Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Caitlin Burke. It's the conflict that could mean chaos not only in the Middle East, but also the entire world. The rising tensions between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And soon it could hit you right in the pocketbook if it causes the price of oil to skyrocket. Already the showdown between the two Muslim powers has led to mob violence as the two countries have cut diplomatic ties. Chris Mitchell brings us the story from Jerusalem.
The conflict between Sunni Saudi Arabia and Shiite Iran pits the two major sects of Islam against each other. The blood feud between Sunnis and Shiites began more than 1,300 years ago. When their prophet Muhammad died, a great debate arose among the Islamic community about who should be the successor of Muhammad. The Sunnis believed he should come from the Islamic community, while Shiites believed he should come from one of the descendants of Muhammad. Both claim to be the rightful heirs of Islam. When the Sunnis killed Ali, the son-in-law of Muhammad, the feud began and simmers to this day. With the furor over the execution of Sheikh Namir, it's boiling.
Boiling in the sense that Iran is becoming more and more a threat on the majority of Islam, the Sunni Islam.
Eliezer Safrir served as the Mossad station chief in Tehran during the 1979 Iranian Revolution. He says the context of the current crisis involves the recent nuclear deal with Iran. When the U.S. signed the deal, Saudi Arabia felt betrayed.
Not only Saudi Arabia, all the Arab Sunni states, they feel that they were betrayed by America. Everybody knows for sure that the Iranians are pushing decisively to reach nuclear power. There is no doubt about it.
Safrir says the Saudis are terrified of a nuclear Iran.
In my opinion, they are praying at nights to God that America and or Israel will do the job for them to hit the nuclear projects in Iran.
He says the execution of the Shiite cleric sent a warning to Iran.
A kind of deterrence, be careful, you are going too far.
Executing this guy is meaning like a declaration of war against Iran.
Middle East expert Michael Barak doesn't expect a direct war between the two Middle East giants, but does expect their proxy wars around the region to intensify.
Actually, we are already witness to the clash between Shia and Sunnis in Yemen, in Iraq, and Syria. It will get worse.
Safrir believes the real danger in the region is Iran.
In my opinion, the head of the serpent lies in Tehran. This is the major threat on peace, on the world, on the Middle East, on the Iranian people.
While these experts don't see a direct confrontation now between Saudi Arabia and Iran, the feud has the potential of sparking a greater Middle East war. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Two men with ties to ISIS have been arrested in Texas and California. Authorities say one of the suspects is an Iraqi refugee who's charged with lying to federal investigators about his trips to Syria. The 23-year-old man came to the U.S. as a refugee in 2012. While living in the U.S., he communicated on social media about his intent to return to Syria to fight for terrorist groups. He also discussed his previous experience fighting against the regime in Syria. But when he was interviewed by citizenship officials, he lied about his travels and ties. The man arrested in Texas has been charged with trying to provide material support to extremists. Both men are Palestinians born in Iraq. President Obama spoke out about his plan to tighten gun control rules Thursday during a televised town hall meeting. CNN moderator Anderson Cooper asked the president about the notion that the federal government, and Obama in particular, wants to seize all firearms as a precursor to imposing martial law. The president blamed that notion on the NRA and other like-minded groups. Obama defended his support for the constitutional right to gun ownership while arguing it was consistent with his efforts to curb mass shootings. He said the NRA refused to acknowledge the government's responsibility to make legal products safer. The NRA did not participate in the town hall, calling it a public relations spectacle orchestrated by the White House. A big victory for ministries who were fearing a new IRS intrusion. Essentially, the IRS wanted to use charities to collect and turn over your Social Security numbers. The American Center for Law and Justice called it a horrible idea and a disastrous power play by the Obama administration's IRS. The move caused great concern, particularly because of the way the IRS targeted conservative nonprofit groups several years ago. There were also concerns that all that information could be hacked from charities if they were required to collect it. The Treasury Department dropped the idea after overwhelming public opposition. Stock markets are calming down a bit today after enduring a very bad week. It was mainly due to a scary sell-off in Chinese stocks as fears escalate about the health of the world's second biggest economy. Dale Hurd has the story.
Chinese stocks rebounded a day after trading was suspended following a 7% plunge that kicked off a global rout in stocks. But a good deal of damage had already been inflicted on the U.S. market in the new year.
This is a weird start to 2016.
Yes, it has. Through Thursday, this had been the worst week for stocks since 2011. The Dow lost more than 3.5%. Another plunge in China Thursday started another global stock slide that sent the Dow tumbling almost 400 points. The plunge in Chinese stocks was set off by concern Beijing is allowing its currency to weaken too fast against the dollar. But today, the Shanghai Composite Index ended 2% higher after swinging between gains and losses. Analysts said the market was likely being supported by buying from Chinese government entities. Average Americans with investments and retirement funds are understandably concerned. But experts say don't sell or change your 401k in a panic.
If you end up selling when the market's down, you're setting yourself up for losses potentially.
Sell-offs like this week may present an opportunity to purchase stocks at a discount.
If there are stocks out there that you've been following over time that in your opinion have been too expensive for you to purchase, this might be the time to step in.
Or this could be only a pause in a very bad month. Analysts warn that anyone with money connected to this market needs to be very careful, and that a series of aftershocks from last year's boom and bust could shake markets for months to come. But even so, many experts still believe stocks will go higher in the years ahead. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Reports of sexual assaults at 3 military academies spiked by more than 50% in the past year. That's according to a new report from the Defense Department. It shows there were 91 reported sexual assaults at the U.S. Naval Academy, the U.S. Military Academy, and the U.S. Air Force Academy. At the Air Force Academy alone, the number of sexual assault cases have nearly doubled, and harassment complaints have increased by 40%. But senior defense officials are unsure if more crimes are happening or if more crimes are just being reported. In Alabama, at least 3 probate judges have stopped issuing all marriage licenses. This comes after a ruling by Supreme Court Chief Justice Roy Moore. He says the Alabama Supreme Court never lifted a March directive to probate judges to refuse licenses to gay couples. Moore says judges have a duty not to issue any marriage license, contrary to Alabama's state law protecting traditional marriage. With the Iowa caucus just weeks away, Texas Senator Ted Cruz has been building a large organization of Christian supporters in Iowa. He's amassed county leaders across the state and support from a clergy member in each of the 99 counties. CBN's David Brody has learned that Cruz will meet with many of those pastors on January 25th, 1 week before the vote.
Ted Cruz, there's no doubt he's the guy to beat in Iowa. I know there are polls that show Donald Trump ahead, but there are more polls showing that Ted Cruz is ahead.
Cruz has picked up endorsements from Iowa evangelical leader Bob Vander Plaats and Focus on the Family founder James Dobson. In the past 2 elections, conservative Christians joined together to give victories to Mike Huckabee and Rick Santorum. But it's not clear if their votes will be divided between multiple candidates this time, since several conservative Christians are running. Coming up, refugees are flocking to America, and one group is making sure they find a home. Watch them reunite families from around the world when we come back. Two prominent evangelical leaders say they want a greater evangelical presence at this year's March for Life in Washington, D.C. Catholics have traditionally organized and largely supported the event, known as the biggest pro-life rally in the world. But Russell Moore, president of the Southern Baptist Public Policy Arm, and Jim Daly, president of Focus on the Family, say evangelicals need to step up. Moore told the media this week, "I don't want any fewer Catholics at the March for Life, but we need evangelicals to be present there as well." The March for Life is January 22nd. They're fleeing from the violence in their own country of Syria, and 2,000 Syrians have been accepted in the United States since the refugee crisis began, after going through the government's vetting process. One Christian group called Church World Services works with these refugees to make sure they adjust to their new life. Abigail Robertson shows us how that led to a successful transition for one Syrian family here in their new country.
They've escaped war zones, survived refugee camps, and just arrived in the United States to start a new life. Now, Middle East refugees face a new list of challenges. Where will they live? How will they pay the bills? Where do they learn English? And how do they enroll their children in school? Daunting questions that some Christian groups are helping the refugees answer.
This is work that is very significant, and it's a need in our world right now, and it's something we can actively do.
It is amazing what can be done when people come together, and what better way to make a refugee family feel at home in America than by welcoming them with a furnished apartment with food already in their fridge. That is exactly what churches throughout the nation are accomplishing by coming together, serving people, and showing them the love of Christ. Church World Services works with churches around the country to help refugees from the moment they arrive at the airport.
And when we know that they're going to come, we'll get an email, we'll get an arrival notice, and that's when we're going to start hitting the ground running.
First up, finding a house for the family to rent, then stocking it with necessities like furniture, food, and toiletries. Next, CWS pairs each new family with a church partner. Fortunately, they currently have a list of churches waiting to sponsor families from all countries and religious backgrounds.
A welcome team is usually a church group, but sometimes small groups, very intentional groups of people who come together and say, we're going to work with a family. It adds this holistic element of community.
CWS's end goal is simple: teach each incoming family how to be self-sufficient in America. That process happens through 3 programs: resettlement, employment counseling, and immigration legal services. They work closely for up to 5 years with each family as they acclimate to their new society.
It's just very, very, very encouraging to watch families reach milestones.
Farhan, a Syrian, arrived with his family 5 months ago. Their journey here began in 2011 when the UN approached them about resettlement in the U.S. Then came 4 years of vetting overseas until they received clearance to come to America, where they found an unexpected and loving welcome.
We had a misconception about the people here, but that all changed.
Thanks to CWS, Farhan becomes more comfortable every day. His English is improving, he's working, and his daughter made it to the top of her high school class. Before being granted refugee status, many families wait an average of 3 years as they get health and security clearances. For many of them, that time is spent inside refugee camps or hiding in the shadows of other Middle Eastern countries already overwhelmed by the refugee exodus. While Farhan's family awaited resettlement, one of his sons turned 18 and as a legal adult was separated from his family's case.
He's in Jordan alone. No one is there to support him. He's not allowed to work in Jordan. His situation is very dire.
CWS tries to bring families back together, but it's not an easy legal process.
In our office, we're able to apply for family reunification, reuniting family members who have faced that sort of separation. They have to go through the same exact background check process as with refugees who are arriving without family members already here. So on average, that still takes 3 years.
Christine told us one lonely mom's story.
We had a recently arrived woman who came to Lancaster, and we did not know that she was separated from her husband and children. This mother was just recently reunited with her 16-year-old daughter, and she had not seen her 16-year-old daughter in person for 6 years. Being able to offer a space where families can be reunited after being separated for so long is extraordinary. I have no words for it.
Christine sees the perseverance of these refugees as a positive and asks Christians to pray for them through their entire journey.
These families are very resilient, survivors in a lot of ways, and not in any way helpless.
Farhan wants Americans to know that with a little help in the beginning, Syrian refugees can adjust just fine.
My call to the American people is like, we need help in the beginning, and then we will stand on our feet and do our part and work, and we want to work so we can be better and better.
Farhan's family's journey has been far from easy, and they still face many challenges ahead. But the support they've received from Church World Services has proved essential to helping them adjust to their new life in America and become productive members of their new community. Reporting from Lancaster, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Up next, The Masked Saint, Star Wars, and Daddy's Home. We've got your family-friendly movie reviews after this. Well, the weekend is here, so it's time for our regular family-friendly movie reviews with Bob Waliszewski. He's with Plugged In Online, the entertainment review department at Focus on the Family. Bob, let's start with The Masked Saint, a true story about a pastor. What's this one about?
Well, based on a true story. They took quite a few liberties, but it's about a man who becomes a professional wrestler, then leaves professional wrestling to become a pastor. But he's coaxed back in to wear his mask. He wore a mask in the ring when he sees a woman on the street facing a problem. So he gets involved then at night in this vigilante justice. Now, this is a faith-based film, and those who have been watching and heard me from a long time know I love faith-based film. What a great opportunity to share the gospel. But this is a film that I have to admit is not one of those at the top of my list. It just seemed to be a bit disjointed. The storytelling wasn't quite up to par, in my opinion. From a family perspective, the violence was a little bit thump, 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 a little bit tough. We gave it a 3.5, kind of a, that's not a bad score, but relatively low for a faith-based film.
Okay, so this next one seems to be at the top of everyone's list. The whole world has been talking about the huge success of Star Wars, The Force Awakens. What do you like about that film?
You know, number one, it's made $1.5 billion globally, and it came out December 16th, and the #1 grossing film in the U.S. of all time, which, when you say it's also family friendly, we gave it a 4 out of 5. Yes, there's violence, but it's what we've come to expect in the franchise. Some lightsaber violence and a rather large body count if you start thinking about how many people must have lost their lives on that planet that was destroyed, etc. But it's your classic good versus evil story. They didn't stray much from the template of old, and I'm glad the film is doing well.
Okay, so a number of other films came out over the Christmas holidays that we haven't had a chance to talk about. Give us your take on Daddy's Home and the more serious film Concussion.
You know, both of these films are mixed bags for me. They both had some elements that I really like. Like, I'll start with Concussion. Following Dr. Bennett Omalu was incredibly inspiring to realize that the true story of this doctor from Nigeria, who spent his own time and his own money at great risk to his career to try to find out what was wrong with Pittsburgh Steeler, like Mike Webster. Why was he suffering with some disorientation and dizziness, and he was giving himself taser shocks. And why was he doing all this? Only to discover that it probably resulted from the concussions of playing football. And he thought when he explained it to the NFL, they'd say, wow, we're so glad to know. And instead, that's not exactly what happened. So I like the story, but some of the autopsy scenes I could have done without. They didn't leave a whole lot to the imagination. With Daddy's Home, you wonder when Will Ferrell shows up, is it going to be an elf Will Ferrell or Land of the Lost Will Ferrell? And this time it was Land of the Lost, meaning there was a lot of nasty stuff in a film that had some really good things to say about what is fatherhood. So we gave that film a mere 2. By the way, we gave Concussion a 2.5 out of 5 for family friendliness.
All right, some things to keep in mind when you head to the movies this weekend. Thanks for being with us, Bob.
You bet, Caitlin.
400-year-old Canaanite Citadel is being integrated with part of a brand new high-rise apartment complex in northern Israel. Archaeologists with the Israel Antiquities Authorities uncovered the ancient citadel in the seaside city of Naharia recently. They say it was likely an administrative center that served mariners along the Mediterranean coast more than 3,000 years ago. Archaeologists also discovered many artifacts like ceramic figurines, bronze weapons, and imported pottery vessels. Israel often finds ancient discoveries like this during building projects. Part of the citadel will be preserved and put on display in the basement of the new apartment building. It's just one more sign Israel is a unique blend of the ancient and the modern. That's it for now on CBN NewsWatch. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care about most at cbnnews.com. And tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here. You can do that on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. We hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.